I would say yes, the chatbot is the next big thing, right? And MetaHuman is also coming. But don't forget the basics when you're trying to design for all of these, futuristic design. And don't forget the basics of user-centered design, and the basics of how human interact with the systems. So keep those things in mind when designing, and I think we will have a perfect world where we have perfect conversations with the bot.
Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of Engatica's interview series. I'm your host, Nimilika, and we are really glad to have you join us today. And today we have Shyamala Prayaga, Conversational AI and Deep Learning at NVIDIA on the show. Welcome to the show, Shyamala.
Thank you so much.
The Engatica interview series is a powerhouse of insights from industry experts and influencers from around the world, a platform that provides the latest news on AI, automation, and technologies that will help you grow your business. Join us, be a part of our community, learn, share, and grow with us. So, Shyamala, shall we start our conversation?
Absolutely.
So, today chatbots have become pretty common. So, what are the challenges are we facing? Like, what are the challenges we are facing in having text-based conversation, and how will we transform from text-based conversation to voice conversations with chatbots?
So that's an interesting question. So if you look at the text-based conversation, there's a bunch of things, right? You are visually able to see a set of things what the bot is able to support. So it's easy for you to mentally map like, oh, these are the kind of questions I can ask, and you can move forward with the conversation. It's very easy for you to even go back into the context, like, oh no, I don't want this one. I want to see the previous question or something of that sort. But with voice, it's like a black box. You're not able to see anything. You don't know what it is supporting, and you don't know like what you can ask. So let's take an example of the customer care thing, right? In the customer care, if you want to change a couple of things or you want to order something, you have those options in the bot. So you know like, oh, I can do these things, or if not, I have an option to even talk to an agent if required, like a real
Yeah.
human. But with voice, it becomes a little challenging because, first of all, there's limited context. So they're not able to understand a lot of things what you're saying. So even if you want to order something, you're not visually able to see, like, okay, how does it look?
Yes.
So there are certain use cases also which may not work out. So there's challenges like that, but also in the context of okay, do you know what I meant when I said this? So for example, there was this bot I was playing around with. I think it was Google Assistant long time back. So I said like, remember this location. I will ask you a question about this, and Google was like, okay. And then I was like, okay, what did I ask you to remember? And Google was like, remember this location. Okay, so
Right.
for it, the this was this. It did not understand like, oh, when I said this, I meant Lathrop, or I meant California, or I meant something else,
Mm. Mm.
right? So it's very hard for these voice enabled assistant to be able to map all the different things you are saying, because first of all, they have limited understanding of what you are saying based on just the conversation they are trying to make sense. The NLP has a lot to deliver, right? So
Right.
I would say like that's one thing. The other thing is of course holding the context, right?
Mm.
Multi-tone dialogues, holding the context, all of these things are really limited, although we have made a lot of progress with the voice assistants and voice based chatbots nowadays.
Yeah.
But still we still have a long way to go, because how long do you hold the context? Can you go back to the previous context, right? For example, what is the weather in Seattle? And the assistant will say like, okay, the weather is rainy. Okay, and then you're asking, how about Michigan? And it will say something like, yeah, it is cloudy, right?
Mm.
And then you come back and okay, what time is it? And then the assistant will tell you the time, like, okay, 2 p.m, right? Then you come back and say, how about Michigan? So are you asking about the time, or are you asking about the weather? Right, it's very
True.
hard for
Yes.
these assistants to even map those things. But if we were humans doing those conversations, it's very easy for you to know like, oh, I was asking about the time and not the weather.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
So
So these are all multi-turn conversations, right? So there should be a design that goes into having having an intelligent conversation assistant. So what should we keep in mind? How do we design it in such a way that it becomes a smooth conversation? Like without, if you take WhatsApp for example, you don't, instead of clicking on buttons, how do you converse like with a bot
yeah.
like you do with a human?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, with a caveat, of course, right? When you are introducing yourself to someone, you're not going to say that, okay, my name is Shamla and I can do this, right? Or something like that. It's very casual. You figure out things on your own based on the conversation, like, oh, you like this, or uh, you want to talk about this or something of that sort, right? But with bots it's very hard. So first of all, there's a rule of thumb and there are certain things you have to keep in mind, right? Like conversation design becomes so important in this context. Like how are you designing the conversation, because that's the
Yeah,
stepping stone. You can mimic a lot of human qualities and human conversations, but you cannot 100%, right? So the first thing is introducing, the bot should introduce itself with setting the
yeah,
stage, like here are some things I can do. Yeah, the bot can do 50 different things, but you're not supposed to tell all the 50 things at once. It's information overload for the user. So how do you
mm,
do that in a progressive disclosure manner? Tell them the bare minimum things you want to start with, like I can play music for you, or I can order 2 things for you, or I can call
mm,
someone on your behalf, or I can make reservations, right? Pick 2 or 3 which are important and then progressively disclose. That's one part. Also, the second thing is trying to understand the context, right? It's very important. Holding the context is important. So if the user said this and you're not sure, ask the user, like, did you mean location? I do not have your location in file, could you share that with
mm.
me, or something of
Yes,
that sort. So it becomes easy for the conversation to move forward. If there are confusions, clarify, right?
mm,
So these are the things we as human also do. Like if you someone said something in the meeting and you're not unclear, you would not just nod and say like, okay, I'll figure it out later. You would try to clarify immediately then and there.
correct,
That's
correct,
the same
yes,
kind of things you have to do with the bot, like clarifications when it is required, or
mm,
confirmation, like, okay, did you mean this? If you are not very confident about what the user said, or
mm,
if you're not very confident about the response, because it's all the NLP, right? And which is
correct,
driving this entire process. So those are the kind of things you have to. But again, how long do you want to hold the context? Do you want to support
mm,
the multi-turn dialogue in the same intent, or do you want to support it in multiple intent, like, moving from shopping to planning something else and then coming back to weather? Because yeah, if I'm planning a reservation, let's say I'm planning my
yes,
vacation and I'm saying I want to reserve, I would want to plan like, okay, how's the weather in Seattle, so I can plan my vacation accordingly, right? So I want to move
correct,
switch back and forth between the conversation. So being able to
mm,
have that kind of flexibility, that going back and coming should be smooth. So these
correct,
systems need to understand a lot of things from the
mm,
user's context, but also from the user's environment, like what they are doing and their previous recommendations. It's like, when you're meeting someone for the first time, you don't know a lot about them, but the second time onwards, and you are tweaking your conversation accordingly with them.
correct, correct, yes. So that is the bot side of intelligence. So how do we design the user experience so that the user who's talking to the bot understands that this is what the bot can do, this is what it can't do? How does the user empathize with the system, conversational system?
I'll tell you one thing, user will never empathize with the conversation system. Okay, that is not going to happen. If that would have happened, people would have realized Amazons and Google Assistants and all of these are bots and they are still
Mm,
learning, and people would not yell at them or say shut up, or get angry when these assistants are
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
help and do something wrong. So that's never going to happen, because in user's mind, there's a system which is talking to it, so they are immediately mapping it. You call it anthropomorphism. You're immediately
mm,
mapping to it as a real human, like, oh, I'm talking to this person, right? They don't say
okay,
they don't say it. or they don't say that, they will say her or she or he, right? So that's it, that's how it is. Like, people anthropomorphize first of all, and the second thing what happens is they're going to if the system does not understand, people will show the same kind of frustrations they show to a human, like shut up or don't interfere. I've seen people doing that. Like, if Amazon will all of a sudden start talking, Alexa will all of a sudden start talking, and I have not initiated, people will be like, Alexa, shut up. Okay, so some people are also using it for mannerism, like teaching their kids manner. But all
Yes.
of these things are there. User experience is not like you are expecting the system, the user to empathize. For example, a website, if a website sucks, right? You cannot expect a user to say like, oh, probably, the developer was tired, or probably the company does not have budget or whatever. No, people will not expect that thing. That's not user experience. It's the other way
Correct.
around. Design for the users, the way they talk, the way they think, or the way they interact, design for their mental model, not expect the other way around. So I would never think that users will empathize with a bot. It will never happen. How do you design empathizing with the user is the important question, right?
Yeah.
That is what you
Right.
should be doing. Like, okay, this person has speaking disorders. How do I design for a person like this? This person has limited mental abilities. How do I design for that person, right? People do
Correct.
not speak in a linear fashion. People keep switching conversation, or people keep thinking, because our mind works so differently. We have 10 different thoughts in our mind. So when we are talking from all over the context. We're not talking in a linear fashion. How do you keep
Yes.
that kind of experience in mind? Like, this is how users speak or think, and design for that. It's important, right? So that is where user experience comes into play. That is where user-centered design approach comes into play. Like, thinking about the user, who your users are, what you're designing, what are their use cases, what is their context, right? What are their
Yes.
limitations, what is their mental model, their emotions, their sentiments, their limitations, their goals, all of those things, and then designing for them. It's really important to think from think about it from that angle.
Yes. So instead of expecting the users to learn what the bot can do, the bot should learn what the users want, and then the designers have to teach the
Yeah.
bot, saying, if the user is saying this, do this."
if
Nice.
you
That
have
is.
to if you have to teach the users how to speak with a system, your design has
Hmm.
failed right then and there,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Hmm. Yeah. So users not only talk via text. If both of us are talking, you know how I look like, you know what I am doing with my face. So that is multimodality that we include in our conversations. So how do you think the future of conversational AI would look like if we
So
introduce multimodality?
I think we are on that path already, right? We are
Mhm.
thinking about multimodality in different contexts. I know a lot of companies have started to think about it. Multimodality in the sense like how you and I are talking with a digital human or a meta human will
Mhm.
also come eventually. And I have started to see that trend as well, where meta human is becoming a thing, right?
Yes.
But even before we go there and introduce a meta human and start talking with it and have this person, there's a lot which we have to do in the conversational AI space to
Hmm.
understand some of the user emotions. For example, body language. When I'm talking, when I'm nodding, when I'm the tonality in my voice, the modularization in my voice,
Yeah.
all of those things are so important, right? So
Hmm.
based on that, you can say if the person is happy or sad, or if frustrated or angry, right? Those things are
Yeah.
important to understand first of all. So I would say that first of all, these technology needs to understand the emotion, right? What the user said or is
Hmm.
saying, or how they are feeling, and then learn how to respond. It should not be a cookie cutter response. Like, I've been doing digital assistant throwdown for almost like 1.5 years,
Mhm.
and although the chatbots have come a long way in terms of how they respond, they are still very much cookie cutter. If I ask, I'm depressed, it will say like, okay, if you Siri would say like, okay, if you need a friend, talk to them, don't be isolated or something like that. And
Yeah.
if I say like I'm sad, I would get the same response. If I say like I'm worried about my dog, it would say the same thing, same response.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the NLP is just trying to understand certain keywords like worried or
Correct.
depressed or things like that, and mapping a like response to it, saying this is the response you should give. But yeah,
Yeah.
how should it be? If I ask you the same thing like I'm worried about my dog, your answer will be completely different
Hmm.
versus when I say I'm depressed, right? The same thing. Alexa goes like one step ahead with this thing. It's very weird. When I say I'm worried about my dog, it will tell me I have a dog skill if you are interested. Why do I need dog skills? So these bots have to first learn how to fix these things, which is going to take time.
Hmm.
Yes, multi-modality will come, but first learn how to do the human-to-human conversation with the bot
Correct.
and human,
Yeah.
right? Once we
Yeah.
fix that, that's when the emotions and expressions and body languages and all of that will come into play. Because yeah, now the bots are smart enough that people will not get frustrated seeing a bot. If you bring meta human into play, which has
Hmm.
all of the perfect expressions and emotions, but it is not able to understand the other person's expressions and emotions and responding in a very idiotic manner, people will be like, screw,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And we have seen a downfall in the utility of these assistants for the very same
True.
reason, right? Initially people
Hmm.
were so excited and there was a high peak. Now we are not seeing the same peak, we are seeing there's a downfall. And
Yeah.
there's a reason why that's happening, so we need to fix those things, right? And again, tweaking to the responses, like if you are saying something and the bot recognizes that okay, this person is angry, how do I
Hmm.
immediately respond in a manner that, oh okay, looks like you're angry, how can I help you, or is there anything
Hmm.
I can do to make it right for you, right?
Yes.
It's not how it works right now, so it's going to take time.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll be there.
We'll be
So
there.
before we end our conversation, do you have any other sound bites to share with our audience?
I would say like yes, the chatbot is the next big thing, right? And MetaHuman is also coming, but don't forget the basics when you're trying to design for all of these, futuristic design, and don't
Hmm.
forget the basics of user-centered design, and the basics of how human interact with the systems. So keep those things in mind when designing, and I think we will have a perfect world where we have perfect conversations with the bot.
Nice. Thank you so much for your very, very valuable insights, Shyamala. For more content, subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon to get access to exclusive content from thought leaders from around the globe. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you with a new expert soon. Thank you, Shyamala.
Thank you. Take care.